I didn't set up the... Did I have to set anything up, Vince, or just click on the live stream in Zoom?
Just have to click on the start live streaming. That's it.
Okay, good. And we are recording and participant list hosted. All right, perfect. My audio going on live stream. Hello, everybody. Did I have to set anything up, Vince, or just click on the live stream in Zoom? Stop that recording. I don't know how that came up. It's from YouTube. Okay, just bear with me a minute here while I cancel out a couple of things. Yeah. Okay, I think we are up and running here. Just double check. We got sound and light and sound. That seems good. Okay, let's begin. Welcome everyone to the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group for Tuesday, May 1st or Wednesday, May 2nd, depending on what part of planet Earth you happen to be in, on, or around this day. And my name's Rick Crammond. I'll be your host today while we talk about Keshe Plasma reactors and other such things. Other such things is pretty wide open and open-ended, as they say. And as is our tradition here, we'd like to start with Lee Coates because he's there and often willing. So I like to pick on him. Pick him. Hang on just a second, Lee. I got a loose cable I have to find among my pile of cables here to plug in. Otherwise, we're going to echo. There we go. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm okay. Now, let me just one more detail here with this auto camera so it stops autoing on me. There, I think we're done. Okay, Lee, what do you got? You got something you've cooked up in your oven or something here. Let's have...
That's my plasma punch bowl.
Plasma punch bowl. For a plasma party, no doubt.
So I'm trying to make hydrogen GANTs.
Okay.
So I've been over at the secondhand store looking for a bowl that was big enough to get Coke bottle in. So I got a glass plate on top and some Coke bottles in there with in the CO2 kit, basically.
Sure. Where else would you go for parts for your spaceship reactor?
That's right. I went and found 4 of them over there, so I bought them all for $20.
When people start finding out about this, they're going to be buying them up like crazy. So you have to stock up, right?
Yeah. So I got the nano-coated copper plate on this side and the zinc plate on that side connected together with an LED.
As the usual.
I just got
saltwater solution, I assume.
Salt water, I've got about 7% salt. I'm just following the instructions that John gave us at the Blueprint weekend there a few weeks ago. So I got plastic chips in there with caustic, put in some hot water, and then added some decarbonated CH3 H3, in other words, I guess. And we'll let it cook there for 3 or 4 weeks.
And they're both the same, those two bottles, is that right?
Yeah, they're both the same. They're just 5 for these bowls. You can only get 500 milliliter bottles would fit. The next size up didn't fit.
Right. So you probably didn't put very much caustic in, because I put a lot of caustic in one time in a bottle and shrank it down to about half the size of a bottle, literally.
Well, these here, they actually shrunk down by about 1/4 inch. That sort of surprised me. And I only had a teaspoon of caustic in there. So, and I only put in, I don't know, about 2 inches of hot water into the Coke bottle. So, but that used up all the H3 I had made. So I discovered that I need to go on a CH3 making binge and make lots of it, and then make lots of H3, and so I can make some hydrogen, you know. So it's a 3-step process, and every step takes 2 or 3 weeks. So my experiment downstairs is going to be slow getting finished.
Okay. Well, it's got a good start, it looks like, so that's important.
Yep. I got that video from the weekend all queued up where John shows us how to make hydrogen gas. If you think that would be appropriate to watch.
The video where John shows how to make hydrogen gases. You have that lined up? Okay. Yep. Let me think. There's no ads or music on it. I don't think there's anything you have to worry about with it.
This is my video. It's got intros and outros on it, but I've got the commercial license to make them and sell them, so I don't think there's any copyright problem there.
Commercial license for me to broadcast it?
Well, I use a service called Videos, and I bought actually way back at the start, I bought a website off them that sells these videos, and plus I can make them to put on other people's videos and sell them these little intros and outros and all kinds of stuff. So I got the commercial license.
You're allowed to put it on my video, and the rights are transferable so that I can transfer that to anybody else that I want to.
That's right. I'm giving you the rights.
Okay.
You can do whatever you want with them.
I'll have to trust you on that, so I don't have to edit the video later, I hope.
Okay, so it's only 10 seconds on the front and the back. So.
Okay, yep.
Okay. And I don't think I've shared a video before, so let's.
Get your video lined up all ready to go first in a window.
Do I have to have it full size or just?
You don't have to. You can put it in a window, and I think
I forgot to.
Excuse me. You can click on, in the share box, you can click on share the computer audio, as well as optimize for full screen.
Yep.
Something's coming through. Now it's looking pretty fuzzy. Did you click on the optimize for full screen?
Yeah. Just so my video controls aren't, they're down below there. Huh. There's a button.
Okay, we're here in Arizona, and we're going to show you how we make the hydrogen gas. So we start off with CH3. We remove the carbon from the CH3. So this material here has CH3 with carbon removed. And then David, what else did we do to get it prepared? We have two methods. One we call the Caustic Method, and one we have battery method. So David, go ahead and explain how we get this
First
ready.
method, we want to use the caustic, the plastic pieces.
From
Then
Coca-Cola bottles.
We put in a Coca-Cola bottle. We put a teaspoon or a tablespoon of the plastic inside.
Plastic pieces, yeah.
Plastic pieces. Then we come with the caustic, the NaOH, and we put, depending on the bottle, 1 teaspoon or 2 spoonfuls of caustic, and then we put hot water.
Yeah.
Inside the bottle.
So we nano coat the inside of the bottle and the material, and we pull the carbon apart from the CH3. Okay.
Then we add the liquid CH3 inside the bottle, and that's what we have.
So it has caustic, plastic bottle, and then we're going to float it in our CO2 container. Make sure the top is on good, and it just sits in there. Nothing more. Then when we're done with it, we wash it 3 times, and we have our hydrogen GANs. Okay, so the other way we make hydrogen GANs, David, tell them what we're doing. We put that in this fish tank. We call this the caustic method for hydrogen. And then the other method we're using,
it's right here.
The same CH3 that has the carbon removed from it. You don't have to take it out.
Okay, we got the 3 bottles connected with electrodes and LED.
Don't take it out. Don't take it out, David. Just leave it in there.
Here we have the electrodes connected. Only one electrode is touching the CH3 in the bottom. The other ones are floating in the air above.
Yeah.
And we connect a battery to power the flow of the plasma in the bottles.
It doesn't take much. A lot of times we'll use a 3-volt battery. Right now David's using one of his homemade plasma batteries. He's trying it out. We also have a voltmeter here, so we're always getting power. And you can see we put the LEDs between
the center pins.
And then we let this sit for 2 to 4 weeks. And then we harvest. In this case, we don't need to wash it anymore. It's already washed. In this case, we got to wash it 3 times. That's how you make hydrogen.
There you go.
Okay, well, thank you, Lee. The video is quite fuzzy. I think maybe the optimize wasn't on, or maybe we did need to put it on full screen or a larger video or something there.
Well, I captured it off YouTube, so basically I'm blowing it up on a full screen, so that's probably why it was fuzzy.
Okay. Some resolution got lost there. Okay. Yeah. Well, that just still, you could see what was going on there. I couldn't tell what the wiring was on their 3 containers at the end there. It was just all a blur, and I didn't understand how it was wired or what was connected to what there.
I think they maybe there's another part to the video somewhere else, or another video, but they have one electrode goes right down into the CH3 in the bottle, and the other one remains above the CH3, sort of in the air.
But inside the bottle still, or in the air above the bottle?
In the air above the bottle.
In the air above the bottle, one in the bottle.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but to get the electrical connection, but
I think that's the method to actually make the tritium GANs in the Coke bottle plasma reactors. So they have the 3 electrodes in there, and then he said he connects the 2 center ones, but he didn't specify which center. I think it was the one that weren't touching the CH3 on the bottom with an LED.
Clear as mud.
Yeah. Well,
I'd have to see a diagram to sort that out, and it'd have to be from John, I think, to figure that out technically.
Lee, are you planning an additional process, or is this the setup that makes the hydrogen GANs all together in that little punch bowl you got there.
Well, according to John, I'm going to have hydrogen GANs out of this punch bowl.
All right. I do recall Mr. Keshe, I think it was last workshop, saying that you still have to separate it. And he said there was only one fellow, I think in China, that actually managed to do that. And Keshe said you had to fly down to see it for himself.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I do remember something like that, but
yeah. So he said as you can do it. Sorry.
Was it due to the like the layering that occurs over time that you pull off the top layer or something like that? Was that part of the what was said about that, or was anything said about that?
He didn't give us any clue. Basically, he just he left it be. He said, yeah, just only one guy, and even himself, he knew what he did, but he doesn't know what to do with it. But
well, we have to get the people together that who know what to do with it, but don't know how to make it, with the ones that know how to make it, but don't know what to do with it. It seems like a good match.
So he actually referred to that as a different state altogether, that it's the gas of GANs, or it's GANs in a gas state, not in a solid state. So he says it's sort of like another completely strength on a different level. And I think that's what he was mentioning. That's what you need for space travel, basically, in the universe, is something on that dimension of strength.
Yeah, interesting.
I'll quickly go through the last workshop and find out where exactly that is.
Sure, if you can put a link in, that'd be great. One of those time links to some section. Okay, Lee, anything else about that, or any questions for Lee on his setup, or any other comments about that people can remember?
This is Denny.
Hi, Denny. How are you doing? And by the way, Denny, thank you very much for your hosting last week. You did a lovely job with the drawings and helping people through their ideas and so on. And it was quite a beautiful testament there. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. So the question I have is, they say we took the carbon out of it, but they never explain how they took it out.
Well, that's just they're making H3 GANs basically, and that's CH3 with the carbon taken out as H3.
How do you take the carbon out, though, is what he's asking.
Okay, I haven't made a video for that one yet, but basically you have that's the one where you have the CO2 kit, and then you have the small container of CH3 that sits on the top of it, and then you let that sit for 2 to 4 weeks, and then the CO2 process down below takes the carbon out of the CH3 and leaves you with H3.
Right. I think it's supposed to be a closed container, so it doesn't tend to pull it out of the air. It'll tend to pull it out of the, I meant the larger container should be closed so that it tends to pull it out of the small container rather than out of the air inside the container.
That's right. You should use glass containers. So it's not pulling carbon out of plastic. So you use glass, and you have a glass lid on the top.
That's a really good reminder, because hence the aquariums, I guess, is what we're seeing so many of.
And when I make my CH3 or the H3, I actually tape the piece of glass onto the top of the container so no outside air can get in there either. So it's all the only place the CO2 has got to get its carbon is a little bit of air on top, but in the container, but the rest of it has to come out of the CH3. So And when you're all finished, it looks like CH3. It's hard to tell whether you've accomplished it. So the same with making this hydrogen gas. I mean, you start with H3, which looks like CH3, and when you're all done, it still looks like CH3. So I'm going by faith here.
I guess, Lee, you might want to pay attention to see if you do have a striated H. One is it rises to the top more and one settles to the bottom.
Yeah, well, I'll find that out 4 weeks from now, basically. So with the H3, it doesn't separate.
Hi, I'm Dan from Romania. My question is, you have two guns, one in the top, one settled in the bottom. You have a GANs of GANs. No, in the middle you create a gradient. No, you have GANs of GANs. How you interact? Because initial everybody thinks take the carbon, create a field, a magnet of carbon, and take this and that. But when you have Mr. Keshe insane learning how to make GANs in GANs. No? What is gradient? No, difference of strength of. You have a CFC in top. You have H3 or CO2 in the bottom. You have two plasma and make GANs in like hemoglobin 1 and hemoglobin 2. Between you have another type of restricted area. No, you think.
Yeah, well, part of it is when you say we got making a GANs of GANs, that's sort of what we're doing with the caustic in the Coke bottle up top, and we're pulling. We're actually pulling carbon out of the plastic in that Coke bottle with the caustic, I think, to some extent. And we're also nano-coating the inside of the Coke bottle. You make sure you swish the caustic all around the inside of the Coke bottle, so you got a nano-coated chamber.
You nano-coat two elements. Bond of CH from plastic, and another element is the wire of copper or what is the connection, no? You know, when you have a connection, no? Two elements. You have plasma and you have state of matter, no? You nano-coat and you have a gradient. What magnet field create inside? Because another time I put this question: what happens when you have a bottle of plastic or another of glass? What happens when you have like I say element, different elements? You use zinc nano-coat, zinc iron. We use only copper in caustic or fire nano-coat. You obtain different things. In this case particular, you obtain bonds of CH, no? Extract CH from Coca-Cola bottle. You have magnet of carbon. No carbon, because you have CF3 in the bottom. only.
Yeah, I think you're right. We got a gradient between the CH3 up top and the CO2 GANs we're making down below. So we got a field flow from the top to the bottom, and the bottom needs carbon to make CO2. So out of that field flow, out of that plasma field, it's taking away the carbon strength to make more CO2 GANs, and that's depleting the carbon from the container above.
Okay.
So I just went through the last workshop, and my memory served me correctly that you do have to separate it. And he said that the H3 and hydrogen would form a different color, so you would be able to see it. But then he goes into sort of how that all works. So I sent you the link there, Rick.
Yeah, that would be interesting to watch over again and refresh our memories.
So what do you plan to do with it, Lee? Are you planning on building a spaceship?
Definitely.
Oh, right on, man.
No, that was my chestahedron spaceship I showed a couple of weeks ago down the basement. So I need the H3 and the hydrogen gases to go in the balls in that thing eventually. And then I've got another spaceship design that I started 6 months ago, which I didn't know how to load it. And so now now I know I got to have a triple ball with a hollow ball in the middle, and I'll load it the same way with this H3 and CH3 gases and see how that one works. So
I'm not able to get that link to open to the time setting for some reason. Is anybody else able to? Oh, I see. It's to me privately. Here, you can. We can put it in the. Public part here. There's the link in the Zoom.
Sorry, I think I added the second as a capital S instead of a lower S.
Maybe that did it. Okay. Let me
so
try. Wow, yes, that's what made the difference. Just a little change in the S. Let's see.
So at that time, Mark, right before, there was a fellow showing his setup on hydrogen gas he was hoping to do. And
right, yeah.
You can go through it all, but this is basically Mr. Keshe explaining it from then on.
Okay. I guess I could set that up and play it off of YouTube.
Also, did anyone manage to spin a CD-ROM with their reactor?
I think, what's his name? Rene Mounts? I think that's his name. I was doing that, and I think I saw a post recently. I didn't get a chance to have a look at it yet.
I think Keshe asked us all to kind of replicate it to see if we could produce the same effects. I'm sure it should take us, 5-10 minutes to glue a CD-ROM onto a reactor. So I could even get that going right now, actually.
Yeah, it's just you still have to do all the experiment to make sure it's actually has to do something to do with the GANs, and you have to also try it with distilled water to see if it's the same effect taking place or different, and so on and so forth, to make it a controlled experiment rather than just showing something that may or may not be that effect. So that's what I would like to see, a controlled experiment showing that. Okay, so let's play this excerpt that you sent here, and we'll play a few minutes of it perhaps and just see what Mr. Keshe had to say about that procedure. Okay, I think it's set up properly. Let's give it a go. No, something's not working. Did anybody hear that? You couldn't hear it, eh?
No audio.
Yeah, try the sharing again here. Okay, let me try it again.
How come you expect the gas of zinc and CH3 and CO2 to be at the bottom now that you made the gas of CH3, and then you came up with a brilliant idea to make your, what do you call it, H3 now is a gas like as we see here. You put a bottle, you want to collect it. If you collect things in there, you don't collect. I do it in a specific way because I collect gases. I don't collect gases. When you create that CH3 in your containers, what you got to understand is a very simple fact, is that if your CH3 is this color, I'll make it very dark, and then you make your CH3 process, whatever, what are you going to get with your new CH3, which is majority of it, let's say CO2 has gone, those of you know what I'm talking about, what are you going to get? You're going to get a lighter CH3, lighter CH3. And if you be able to convert all your CH3 to H3, you get a cloud at the bottom. It doesn't become a gas and float away. So it means you haven't understood the process. So, and then you see a residual of CO2 and CH3. Sorry, CH3 and H3. And then you still have to go through another process to separate the two from each other. None of you have gone that border yet. None of you, I don't see it. Because as we've seen in the picture just now, there's a bottle there hoping I'm collecting here. If you collect anything in there, it's dream of CH3, or H3 I should say. H3 is in a GANS state and it's in your water. Observe the color and then look at the density of the material. If you really observe the CH3 and then observe the CH3 which you have extracted carbon from it to be a H3 as a GANS, at the bottom it looks like a cloud, it's a floating cloud, and your H3 is mixed in your CH3. Now you have to go through a second process to separate it. And only one man has achieved it.
Can I ask a question? Can that be done?
First question is free. Second one, we have a banking system. Yes, carry on.
Can it be done in one process?
Yes.
So you use a bag?
I don't know. You have to try. Let me know.
I have.
So what have you done?
Well, if the stronger feeds the weaker, you have a higher salt content in one side and a weaker salt content in the other. And
it doesn't work that way. I mean, they have it understood.
okay.
The plasma created by GaNs of H3 has such a massive power that can span kilometers. I had to go and see it myself.
I think,
confirm it's been
I think
achieved.
maybe I'll end it there. I think we got most of the data. Is that where you were referring to, Thomas?
Yeah. So I guess there's one guy that has the H3 and then or developed the process of separating the tritium from CH3. So I guess that has to be done first before you could start getting into the different levels of hydrogen.
Well, it makes sense that if you had the solution to start with and you could see the separation in the solution itself, maybe that would be a clue. If there's a heavier and lighter to it, then perhaps you could either centrifuge it or let it settle out or draw off something with a syringe or some other procedure.
Yeah, and he said that there would be a cloud, so I'm guessing that would be sort of like a transparent type of GaNs. So he wasn't like, he didn't give too many details, obviously. So, but yeah, that should be a pretty much a strong indication for the different color changes.
Yeah, I think it's tempting to say transparent, but he did use that light yellow color specifically. And I think that might be a big clue too. Somewhere I remember it was discussed or someone demonstrated a light yellow colored GaN, sort of a light green, light yellow, cloudy, very thin, wispy sort of GaNs.
Well, actually, if you probably remember this, Rick, I shared that that CH3 GaNs I made with a meteorite.
Mm-hmm.
And you could actually see different rings of orange. So I'm kind of wondering if it actually had that already separated in its formation and structure, because it was like instantaneous. It started producing GaN. So I could share that picture really quickly so people
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, 1 second.
Okay, well, while we're waiting here, is there any?
Sorry, I'm ready to go now.
Okay, great. Maybe I have to. Oh, so no, that should work.
Did that show up?
Yes, yes, we can see that.
Cool. So actually, there's that dark ring, and that actually, it's really close to the deuterium GaNs, and there's a darker kind of ring really close to that. And then there's a lighter sort of ring after that. And you can just see it by the structure. It's all in concentric rings. So
And what is at the very outer ring? What does it taper off into there?
yeah, it's more of a yellow. Yeah, it tapers off into like a lighter yellow. So I never really did separate these. I just sort of let this thing go for gosh, almost a week, and the whole thing was just filled up with GANs, and so
very interesting. So you didn't put anything else in there? Is there no other plate? Is it just salt water and meteorite?
No, there's it's not inside the water, but it's outside. There's fire coated copper
on the side of the glass or something.
Actually, above it, and so.
But it's not connected in any way. It's just
no. It's about an inch above the water line, and I went with the fire coating because Mr. Keshe said that was more magnetical. So I wanted to give a really strong giving field versus pulling. But I did do zinc as well, and it produced the same effects, but it was more darker of a GANs.
Did you try it without any plate at all on top as well? I assume it still makes GANs, or
no?
That would be good to do as a control.
No, it didn't make any GANs with just.
You did try it and it didn't make any. I see. Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, I would be interested in that outer ring, like between the brown and where it starts to dissipate. It looks almost a little bit sort of greenish or something on the left-hand side there. Maybe it's just the way the camera goes.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to focus in on it, but that's probably the best shot.
No, why is it sort of white right directly underneath? Is there no GANs there, or is it white?
Yeah, I don't think there's any GANs there, but
is it just the light, the way the light hit, or is there actually no GANs there?
No, there is no GANs there, but you could kind of see that all the fields are pushing away from the center. You could kind of see some straight lines, coming from it. So, yeah.
Huh. And do you know what kind of meteorite this is? I know there's several different kinds.
Yeah, I think
chondrite is one, I think.
Yeah, there's more. I guess the more common one has heavy iron and tin combined with it. But actually, I did a little bit of research in it, and every meteorite basically has trace amounts of gold and platinum in it as well. But this one actually had a really high concentration of germanium. I think it was around 6%. But you can get silica-based meteorites. So I've only got 3 types of meteorites, and the other 2 are, I guess, your more common ones, which is just tin and iron. But it's kind of hard to find iron that's around 90% pure unless you could smelt it yourself and refine it. So I actually was hoping this could produce a really nice pure CH3, and it did.
Interesting. What do you think the black is?
I was thinking that was deuterium. So this picture is, I think, 2 weeks, and it's just everywhere. It's completely covered in the meteorite. It kind of looks like it's snowing.
What's the container?
Glass.
Glass what? Is it a jar, or is it,
it's a square kind of vase. I don't know what you would call it, but yeah, it's a square. in shape, and I used ocean water as the solution. So I think it's around 15% salinity.
So Rick, was that what you were asking? What's that white color? That's
Well, in this case, the white was directly underneath the.
Yeah, right here you're talking about.
right there. That was not the reflection of the glass.
That is the glass. Yeah, you could. That's the glass underneath, I guess.
So in the next shot, though, you don't see that it's covered up by the GANs. You don't see the black either, though, really.
No, I think it produced more of the outer than anything. But be nice if someone could test these GANs on a relatively consistent, cheap basis.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any of your GANs tested there, Rick?
Tested by what?
Oh, I don't know. I think the foundation was doing that in Africa. You could send your materials there.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any tests being done yet.
All right, I'll stop sharing.
Well, thank you. That was quite interesting.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think Raman spectroscopy is a viable means to test the GANs.
Is that the one where they dry it out, crush it, and totally destroy the GANs before they test it? I think so.
I'm not too sure.
That's why I'm not too crazy about the tests, because it's like taking a delicate crystal vase and totally crushing and pulverizing it into dust, and then saying, now we're looking at the qualities of this vase, how it reflects light and how it acts as a prism. But it's powder. Well, that's the only way we can test it. You know, so you're taking this beautiful, cloudy GANs substance that has lots of elbow room. It's quite happy where it is. All the particles are little suns that are dancing away and just ready to be their energy to be extracted. And then suddenly you take away their conditions that made them. They're the fluid, the plasma, water around the particles, and dry them up, and then crush everything totally, because they can't take the pictures of the larger particles. It has to be all crushed. And so now you have a bunch of crushed crystals, and it's a whole different substance than it was initially. So I'm not sure whether it's how effective it can be. And plus the process, the way I understand it, they can't actually tell. It's very hard to tell things like oxygen and some other substances that are mixed in. They get some mixed signals sometimes. So not so sure about that, but I think it is shown in the books, right, with the Raman spectroscopy charts as far as the absorption spectra for the CO2 and the and that kind of thing. And I believe it's shown in book 3.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Keshe saying that the peaks showed the CO2 GANs as 22 elements because of the different magnetic fields, the concentric magnetic fields it makes.
Right, exactly. So if that's, you know, it seems like it's not an exact science yet. I do notice that they have some new ways of measuring nanomaterials coming up that they're working on. New types of microscopic examination with the sort of like electron microscope but even better because you can see more things and see actual 3D structures and down to the element level and so on. So
I'd like to
perhaps we
interrupt
will-
just for a minute.
Yes.
This is Denny. I see that we have 6 attendees that probably want to come in.
Thank you. I keep forgetting that we have to go through a laborious process of promoting each one to panelists. Okay, any attendees that were attendees are now panelists. You can now speak if you wish. If you couldn't before and felt verbally frustrated, now's the time to undo that mute button. Okay, are there any other comments at this point in time?
I made a tetrahedron out of PVC pipe in a way that it might be interesting to someone.
Well, you better show it so that we don't have to spend a half an hour describing it verbally, I guess, Denny?
I'm going to see what I got here. There's my hands.
Good. Let me get your video set up here.
I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I'll give it a try. Okay. So I move it back. So we were talking about last week of putting different plates. I just happen to use a coil in each one of these slots. I've got me some zinc wire that I can make into a coil. I got me some galvanized steel I can make into a coil. And then, of course, this isn't nano-coated. It's just plain copper, and it has to be one single strand. This happens to be from a maggrav, and it's got 2 sets of coils, one inside the other. So what I wanted to show was that this way of making a joint for a tetrahedron, because it's very difficult to find fittings that are triangular. I mean, that form that tetrahedron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what I did was I have me a vise and a heat gun, and so then I will heat up the end of the plastic like this. I don't think I need to turn the gun on, but I can heat up the plastic, and it doesn't take long. And then I can go to the clamp, and it doesn't have to be attached. It can be loose. And then I will stick this hot, because this heat gun will heat this up, and you can spin this, and it doesn't burn it. And so then you stick it in the vise, and you turn the vise, and it clamps it down, and it makes these kind of flat pieces. And then you can take and bend it over so that you can make this kind of angle. I just eyeballed it, but it can be measured. That joint would be about 120 degrees. And then up here on the top, your pipes are going to have to be a little bit, one will have to be shorter and one will have to be, but you don't need to cut it shorter. You can just make the bend a little bit farther back so that then they slide over the top. And that's a pretty little nifty way of doing it and putting legs on it. And I have some plastic bolt and nut to fasten this together. Hello. Well, it went bye-bye. So the nut's on the floor somewhere. And so this is following Lawrence's idea by having a nano-coated copper plate in one triangle, having a regular copper plate in the other, and having the zinc and the galvanized iron in the other, and sitting the ball in the center. I was thinking that you had to have that in a salt solution and spin the ball inside there. But he was under the impression that no, you did not. All you had to do was take the fields off of those coils or plates, whatever you decide to put in that framework. So I thought I would and this is basically step one: make the frame, nano coat the copper coil, make the zinc coil, make the galvanized coil, and make another copper coil. That's where I'm, that's how far I got this week. And this is a larger one that I was setting up to be the frame of the, putting the GANs, the plasma containers that are sphere shaped into the corner of this particular framework. I have a situation here where I need to help my grandkid. He's got a little problem. So I'm going to just
Thank you, Benny.
just
I'll mute you.
Let me mute.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a sec.
All right. Well, that's a good shot there, actually, because looking at this is actually a very elegant way to put together structures with that PVC, which is somewhat problematic with the standard joints that you can get to glue in. It seems like this is a very, very nice solution. Congratulations, Danny. I think that's a sturdy structure, and it's all plastic where you don't have any metal. And it should suit the purpose pretty good.
I'm back. You can probably see my belly. So I don't know what you're saying. Oh, this right here is type of a Velcro. It's just a Velcro strap. And you just pull it off, and then there's a little joint here that you pull off, and so this little strap go through there. Of course, you can use different kind of, you don't have to have the strap, but I decided to use Velcro instead of zip tie because I wanted to use an unzip tie, a zip tie that would unzip. And so I decided Velcro would be the best choice because that way I can take things apart by just Velcroing it and rather than zip tying. Oh, and so I calculated the expense of this particular one. This one's 27 inch, and I made it 27 inch so that I could get it through a doorway, not the outside door in a house, but the inside doors that go into the rooms. They're not. Some of them are about 30, and then you got to deal with the actual door itself. So 27 fit well, so that I could.
Is that the width of one of your struts, you mean, or?
Yeah, that's the 27. Goes from one end to the other, so that I could take it through a door. And this right here is just the frame. I haven't set it up to where I will have the different layers of reactors, where I'll have 6 reactors and then 12 reactors. And I want to test the copper coils that go from well, I'd have to get a reactor and set it in there. I haven't. Just a minute. I'll use this ball here. So I haven't designed the perch or anything yet, and I haven't designed the perch for the one that sits up there at the top, and I haven't made a frame large enough to fit this ball in, and I have the material cut and I have the material for it. I just didn't get to that. And so when I priced this out, it came to $6.43. This frame did. So I thought that was pretty economical. These little caps on the bottom, the PVC cap, they're 46 cents. And the nut and bolt ended up being 44 cents for both of them. And so that's basically where I am. I thought I would show where I was. I'm just not completed. I haven't nano-coated the copper wire, or actually haven't even turned it the way I want it. I want the actual coil to have a bigger surface, and so when I wind it around the windings, I want a larger winding. So maybe about a 3/4 inch winding around it. So I haven't done the winding yet, but I am doing something, following through on that drawing that I did last week. Any questions?
Maybe could you show the drawing that do you have that handy to share? Maybe I have it here somewhere. Ah, there it is. Oh, if you got it, so much the better. I've just got a screen share of it. Yeah, just blow that up a bit bigger, Denny, if you can. Ah, there we go. Perfect. Not sure if you want your audio shared, but you're not hearing your audio anymore.
Okay, now I have my audio, and I guess I need to clip off this video. All right, so this is what I showed last week. And so this, the 27-inch, let me see, do I need a pointer? Would be annotate. Give me your annotate. Here we go. So this here is the 27-incher that I was showing in my video. And I need yet to make these coils, and those will need to be nano-coated. And I will make a coil that's like a cone that will get larger and will fit on the end so that it comes down to this ball and fits over this. That wasn't a very good drawing. So when I wind this, it'll get larger. And so it's so that it'll fit over the ball. They just won't be placed here and hope that they will pull the fields from one reactor to the next. What I'm trying to do with this particular principle is to pretty much eliminate the free plasma and direct it from the ball to the upper ball so that I can build a skin for the spaceship. Now, I don't know if that's the way to do it. I just know that that's what I'm going to try to do. And I'll place these six reactors here will be stationary. They won't spin. But this here, right here, and right here will be movable so that I can, say, turn this down here. This is just a concept. I have to actually make something that works so that I can turn these directors, these guidance tools, to each one of these 6 up here and each 12 down here, and I can do it separately. And the reason I want to do that is so I can find out what happens. Is it really? And it comes off of a system that Marco made. I forget the event that he made it for, but it was.
Yeah, I remember that. This had to do with the Alex beads idea, I think, originally, and he had like a piece of nano-coated wire that went to whatever reactor he wanted to put the control through, something like that.
Yes, and so that's the concept that I'm looking at, and then of course I have to take the concept and bring it into reality. Let me see. Let me stop share just for a minute. That means, do I stop annotate first? Okay, stop share. Okay, what do I have here? Oh, is it this one I want? Yeah, that's the one I want. So now, I want to do this. Oops. Okay, I'd like to share again.
Mm-hmm.
And this is it. So I first started with the idea that I would, let me see here. I guess this is good enough. So I made 6, 1, 2, 3, 4 triangles, and I was going to fasten them together. And guess I have to not annotate. Excuse me for my, I want to make it a little bit larger. But then when I started making it, I said, well, I don't need all those plastic pipes. I can bend these, heat them up and bend them, because that's what I was going to do to fasten them anyhow. And so I eliminated each one of these frames. Instead of tying them together, I made it like what I showed you just today. Okay, I'm done sharing. And so if there's anybody else that has a question for me.
Okay, thanks, Denny. Any questions? Anybody has a comment or question? Stella, you have your mic open.
Yes. Nice work, first of all. I love to see your projects. Every week I learn something new. You're very active. The question is, did you think in order to, there could be a movement of the plasma to make the rotation, or did you think in those terms?
That's the desire. And so that when the ball is, this right here is basically, let me see if I got a smaller ball. I might have a smaller ball, just to give me a moment. I think I have a 2-inch ball. The idea was to place this particular ball in the center of this. Once this is completed with the 4 different coils, the nano-coated copper coil, the zinc coil, the galvanized coil, and the bare copper, not nano-coated copper. And so I don't know if that's going to actually form a plasma field in here just by placing it in there like that. Lawrence seemed to think that it would. And so once I test it, I'll probably also test an actual kit where I make a salt solution, and I make a frame where this will sit like this, and I will spin this ball within the salt solution. And that's it takes a little more time to do, so I will experiment with Lawrence's idea first. And okay, just a minute. I think I can do this for you. All righty. Got to make certain I got the volume down, Chris. Okay, take it away. So I hope I answered the question. If I didn't, ask it again.
When I saw your drawing and the structure you're doing, I don't know. I always, my mind put the 2 triangles, you know, like the Merkaba, and they rotate opposite, and they always seems when the 2 energies rotate, or the plasmas rotate opposites, maybe that's when you get the 0 point, you know?
I don't know.
I just, that's why I was asking, and I noticed, you know, we've been talking about in the last few weeks to, even I think Keshe mentions, you know, to use different proportions to like create that dynamic. And he even said last week that once it spins in one way and then rotates, and then you can create infinite, you know, because it completes a cycle and then it starts another cycle in the reverse mode. So that's why I was asking.
Well, let me see if I can follow this and answer it. So let me.
It was in the last week when they talk about it was the day there was a gentleman showing the light with the testing the plasma, and then the same day he talked about the you know, the spinning of the plasma, and it completes a cycle and then goes backwards, and how we can control that with the salt, if I'm right.
Yes. So the other technique that I will be doing with this reactors, I'll make about because they're so easy to make now. I can make more examples. I can say set up 5 or 6 of these 27-inch frames. Let's do this better. Okay. I think so. I can set up these frames that I'm making. Get over there. These. I don't know how I'll go this way. These frames that I'm making, because they're inexpensive, and they're excuse me, Chris. So I'm going to set up with ones where I will use just the emotion forces to collect those in a sphere or in a ball, and I don't know. Come on, it's difficult to get some of this in. I think they move. Yeah, there they go.
That's pretty cool.
And so, so I'm going to, in these balls, I'm going to just set the plasma field that comes from my emotions in here. I'm going to do a test where in these balls I will set up the grid with the 4 coils around it. Let me see if I go back to do that again. Okay, this is called a plasma kit. Okay, this one here. I hope I'm not taking up too much time and are making.
Nope, this is fine, Denny.
Okay, so in each one of these windows, I'll call them. Where am I? Over here, yeah. I'll put a coil. And I won't put, you won't see one in this drawing that'll go in the front window because that's the cutaway. So there'll be a coil in this front window as well. You just, because of the way I need to just put this concept together, and then I will place a ball in the center. I mean, one of these plastic spheres, and I'll see if the fields will come off of that ball. I mean, come off of these coils without having it set in a salt water solution. If I need to set it in a salt water solution, then I will turn it upside down, and I will I think this is how it goes. I will set, get over here. I will then set that ball. Come on. I'll set that ball, that sphere that I'm trying to put the plasma in, and it'll still have the coils around it, but I will spin it in a solution. I'll set up a motor and a pulley, a belt system, and I'll spin this ball inside a saltwater tank. Let me see, let me do this so that I can, I'll set it up in a tank. Let me see.
To be clear, would the ball be empty? We had a question about that earlier.
Yeah, the ball is totally empty. It has nothing in it except air.
So,
I can't.
Can you quickly answer Jay? He's not here right now, but he'll be listening later probably. He's confused how an empty ball can absorb the fields, or does water form in the center of the vacuum, or the air inside the ball? How would you?
Let's explain it like this. It is similar to the ball that you're putting in the dynamic reactor that you put in the center that has nothing in it but air, and the plasma fields collect in that ball. And in fact, then you can take it out of the dynamic reactor and it stays in the ball. I'm talking about the center ball that people put inside the dynamic reactor. Does that explain it enough?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay, I can't remember what I was doing. It's not really important. It's not that important.
Well, you were rotating this.
Oh, I was just gonna. I was putting this. I was putting this in a. Where are we? I was putting this. This particular one in a tub. And I was rotating it. I was rotating, oh, that's not what I want. Excuse me. And so I'm putting it in a tub of salt water. So, and then I've got this, I'll probably, let's do this. Let's go back to red and let's go back to this. I'll probably have a frame that holds this up onto the tub below the surface of the water. Okay, and let's just write something. H2O, salt H2O. Let's just write salt, because you know you could probably use magnesium salt as well. But we're using NaCl. Come on. Okay, that's this here, and so NaCl, sodium chloride, and I don't know what concentration I'll put in there, but it's probably somewhere between 7 and 15. But and Mr. Keshe said it's a way to get these plasmas rotating, the plasma fields rotating by spinning this This would be a motor. And I put it over there on a frame so that I have the least, and this is a belt, you know, that spins. And this is a motor. So I will spin the ball, spin the sphere. You're going to write? It isn't going to. S-P-I-N. This, I'm just going to call it a ball. It's easier.
Hi there, Denny. So I think you're right with that whole setup, and you do have to spin the ball because you said you create the vacuum by pushing the air to the very outside of the container. And when you spin it, I think you said around 3,000 RPM, we create that bubble inside the center core. But if you have it hollow, I guess you didn't say the RPM, but I'm guessing it'd be somewhere around there. So you could create that void.
Yeah, you can actually, even with the lower spinning motor, you can gear it up with a larger what would you call that? A larger gear, a larger pulley here, and a smaller one here. So as this turns, this will turn faster. And so you then will take your, I think there's meters that you would want to have that could check the rotation. You would put a dot or something on this sphere, and as it turns around, you could do that prior to putting water in it. I think you'd want to build a frame that holds this motor and pulley, and then you have to figure out a way to attach it to the sphere. And the sphere is hollow. Okay, shall we put that there too so that people can understand it? Hollow. And it's empty. Why don't we just put an empty hollow sphere?
Empty meaning full of air or full of vacuum?
No, I just put full of air, empty air with air.
When I asked Mr. Keshe at one point, a few workshops ago, he was whether we need to vacuum that empty ball to make it a vacuum. And he was saying that the fields around that is the matter level fields that are around the ball that creates the vacuum. Actually.
Yeah, so you don't. Yeah, so you can leave the air in it. It's a hollow sphere. My S's are not coming out the way they should. P didn't come out very good either. PH. That didn't come out.
There is the text tool too. Danny.
Yeah, it is. I got lazy. SP.
Well, it's tempting to just want to write, and it doesn't come out the greatest in this.
No, it doesn't. I'm like an artist here.
Are you using the whiteboard and a mouse, or do you have a pen of some sort?
I have a mouse.
Yeah, a mouse is pretty awkward. I'd like to have a pen to work with the whiteboard.
Okay, let me see. Is there anything that we need to write in here? I'm texting. What do we want?
You've got your two red arrows. Maybe if you could indicate what they were. I can't remember now.
Oh, these are reactor balls.
Reactor balls, right?
So what you're doing here is you're creating an environment inside that tub, and inside your tetrahedron you have your GANS reactors and your coils. So everything inside that tetrahedron is in the GANS state, be it the water and the air. So he did say when you spin that hollow center, what creates the vacuum is the rotation, but we collapse that when we have it inside water. So when you stop the spin, the water, takes over that space. So I've actually working on this, but it's not a quite elaborate setup. I'm basically just making the Caroline core. So I have 3 cores, and I'm just gonna cut out the outer 2, and I can just have the inside.
I see where I am here. So these over here are coils. Coils, they're
Your L went funny there.
it got messed up, didn't it? Coils.
I had a question about your coils, Denny, and whether they were hooked up to something.
Oops. I think when you make these coils, you do it like you do a kit. This is basically a GANS kit. And you would want to, especially if you do them down here, you're going to be spinning this right through one of these coils. Let me put some coils here. There'll be a, let's do that blue. No, let's do it green or black. Black will be good. There's a coil here. There's a coil here. I don't know if I can get it in there, but we know that it's there. And there's a coil there. And there's one on the back side of that ball. And these will be, they will be connected. You can either run them up this here and connect them up here, run them up here and connect them. And this one here will, and so then you can connect them. I think you connect all 3 of them together, 4 of them. There's 4 of them. There's 4 coils. There's 4 coils. One is nano copper, nano coated copper. One is plain copper, nano. I'll just put plain just because it's, I hope that works. Copper. One is zinc. One is galvanized. Galvanized iron or steel. I hope you guys are having fun watching this. Galvanized steel, I'll put iron. But it's, the wire you buy is galvanized steel, which is a form of iron. So now I lost the question.
No, it's.
Oh yeah, was I would hook the wires together. Yes, I think I'll hook the wires. You'll have 4 wires, and they'll be nano coated and twisted together. Or you can put a LED light. LED light. The reason I do this now. The reason you would do it is so that the electronic flow that's going between these coils is a low frequency. And so it's, I forget what you call it, but you're not, because what's really happened, there's a physical state of the salt helps move it acts as an electrolyte. The salt water acts like electrolyte between each coil. And so you're hooking these coils up and you're running, because the salt water is like an electrolyte. That's my understanding. It's not saying that it actually does that. I'll let people who actually understand that better. That's where I go. So yes, that was the question I had heard. Who was talking to me? I don't.
Well, I asked the question, and it was in the live stream from someone called Watchful Eye. He just asked, are the coils connected with something?
Okay. So
he also says, by the way, I would put the metals together and then with the LED to the nano.
Yeah, that could be the thing you might want to do. You'd put the three metals together. Excuse me, Chris. You put the three metals and then they bring up the nano. You wire these three together. Let's say we twist them together. And then you put the nano here. See, it's quicker for me to write it even though it's messier. These are the wires. From the coils. Coil wires. I guess you can't even read that. Coil wires. Coil wires. And so you would put your LED here. So I didn't know exactly how to do that. I was going to just test it out. But this is a good idea. I think I got it written down now. I think, let me see what I can do here. What I'm having is I don't see my audience. I don't see who's all in the, so let me just.
You have to go to participants, you mean?
Yeah, there it is. And so I was trying to figure out who was talking to me at one time and said I needed to spin the balls in the salt water.
Today or previously, you mean?
Just today. Must have been
Thomas,
chilling.
maybe?
Could have been.
Or perhaps it was Dan who talked earlier.
Well, anyhow, I don't know who it was. So this pretty much explains what I'm up to. And I will do an experiment with this one. I'll do an experiment with just the coils, see if I can get a plasma flow, and I'll do an experiment with just the emotion fields in the ball, and set it up. And this right here is a reactor. So this is over here is the reactor, and I'll set that up. And I'll see what kind of fields come off to see if I because I'm headed. I want to test this emotion theory out too. All righty, I think that has scribbled enough Anybody have any questions?
I saw that Dan has his video open there. I think, do you want to just show something, Dan? Do you have a question or? Anybody else have a question or comment? Well, thank you for your musings on your design there, Denny. It's very good. Maybe it'll inspire someone else to take a different angle or somehow get them to do it, remind them to do something and be able to transfer that into some design that is practical and works.
When I was looking at this tetrahedron, and I said to myself, you know, I could make a larger one, and it would act like a health kit. Say instead of 27-inch struts, I could go a larger, say 6 foot, because you buy these things, they're 10 foot long when you buy these PVC pipes. And so you could set this up. You might want to sturdy it up a little bit. You might want to use a heavier pipe, or you might want to double up on the pipe. But then you could set up a star formation and use it as a health kit.
Yes, and it could be portable as well with a couple of bolts, and the thing comes down.
Yeah, it would, and if you are using the Velcro straps, you just unstrap certain things and go from there. Where a zip tie makes it, you have to cut the zip tie and put another zip tie in.
Yep, good point.
If you're making a health one, Denny, or if you made it like a macabre shape, the triangle inside the triangle, you'd have less diameter and width, but you could have it like foot to head inside from tip to tip or something like that, or a little larger than that. Might be an interesting health arrangement.
Estella says, can I show a sketch? Yes, of course. Go ahead. Oh, Denny's got something going on here. Did you want to bring that up, Denny? Estella wants to show a sketch.
Hi, Rick. I didn't have my volume on. Is this what you mean by a macabre, where you put a tetrahedron this way?
Yep, exactly.
And then you have another one that fits up through it the other way. Okay. So that's all I needed. I just needed an explanation. And
well, I maybe help you with what I sketch.
I'm going to, can I go ahead and clear this now? And do you want to sketch on this whiteboard or your own whiteboard?
Oh, I drew in a paper. I'm going to show mine.
Okay. Let me get out of here then, or I don't need to go. I'm free. You're free.
How do I do this? Oh, video. Okay. And then I need to turn around this thing. Gosh, this phone. Okay. Can I turn around the phone?
Yeah, you should have a little button down, probably in the lower right. There you go.
Okay, so
she should show her video full screen. I don't have her full screen.
Just a minute here. How's that?
So I'm in my desk.
Can you turn your video sideways? Maybe it's no, it just comes through the same size. Okay, the other way I guess will work.
Can you see it?
Yeah, it's just sideways.
Okay. So as you see, I have a coil. The idea is to work in the star formation. This is a perspective. This is a view from the top. And this is if I make a section where I look at the three, I have three spheres with plasma. This cross is, these are the coils, but a 90-degree, in plan, right? So if I have it like this.
Like they did in the health unit.
Yes, I'm using the concept of that, actually, yeah, like the health unit, and the idea to maintain the salt water, I can put it in the inside of a clear pipe with salt and close it if I can do it. But I don't know. The idea is this: each of these will rotate. And the reason why I'm thinking the two coils is because you enhance the 360-degree of the shape of the sphere. And if I'm able to put an axis, this they can rotate. So that's why the idea of rotation in one direction. And the third one on the top also will rotate. And the center, I think it needs to be empty. Why? Because that's my soul, myself. And because all this, it create bigger fields, the three together working together. So that's the idea. And I think it wouldn't be difficult. This could be even a frame. I can have the rotor, so a platform that rotate, and this one from the top or from the bottom, kind of, supported through the same frame. So I will have air. It could be any scale. I can even sit myself in the center because it's a skeleton.
That would be the Merkaba principle. If anybody has done the Merkaba course, that this is the principle of getting down to spinning oneself in free space.
Yeah, if I can probably also intersect a second one in the opposite direction and spinning in the opposite direction, But that's very complex for a woman. So to build it, but I mean, that's the idea. I just think what we're trying to do is to move plasma, correct?
That's what it comes down to, basically, yeah.
And, I mean, and according to Keshe, the idea is not to use mechanics. It would be with a plasma flow. So we use...
That's right. How often do you see motors in space making things go?
The question here is to create a plasma and put the quantity in the the four spheres that they're able to pull each other, working together as one. And so you create the spin by using the different proportions and maybe also the proportion of the quantity of plasma and the proportion of the different gangs, that they are working together, they're pulling each other, This goes beyond my knowledge. I mean, I'm learning all of this at one time. I have to go back to listen a lot of workshops, but
well, we're all beginners in a way with this, because much of what we talked about in the last few years has been on the matter level, basically, in our concepts of the fields and plasma and so on. And if we start talking about the higher strength levels, then many of our concepts will probably go out the window, and all of a sudden, if we were to really comprehend those, it would just be clear to us, and we would know how these interactions would take place. It would be much less.
The other thing I keep thinking about this, because when we create the gangs, your fields are in the gangs, and if your soul and intention is in the center, you're the center of the other, 4 positions. They're working with you. So if you're the center, the strength that comes from your essence, your twin, you bring in the pool of the quantum from the field from your twin is working with you. So that's what I've been thinking.
Well, that's certainly a big part of it as well. Yes, that's what we worked with a few years ago with when we set up the reactors in Canada and Italy and a couple of other places in the world, and everybody was attempting to communicate through these tetrahedral configuration, star configuration as it's known, reactors, which the free plasma that gets created is part of you, and you are part of it. And it's part of the same free plasma in some other reactors, so they all become connected. Because a free plasma is a free plasma.
Dr. Rodrigo's been using this also in part of his medical machines.
Using what in particular, John?
This principle of the tetrahedron, he's made with spinning balls and also with the coils in some of his the models he's constructed.
Well, not only this, I mean, look at the pyramids. Look at the people that meditate inside the pyramid, and they say that they can feel the energy coming into the shape. So, and maybe the star formation by geometry, it capture as an antenna, the fields, and by working with the gangs, you bring in even the plasma field. So,
well, if you look at the structure of CH3, for example, you might find that it has a tetrahedral structure, or even CH4 as well.
So maybe that's something to work with the CH3? Because the universe is very wise. And look, we are all built in the same way, the same components. So, I mean, which gangs to use to do this? Do we need to use our intuition, the strengths of the, when to create the movement, you need to look at the difference of the different gangs in order to get which one is the strongest to the weakest to create a movement, or you use proportion of gangs? I mean, of the same gang, that would be another way to approach, right?
What are you? What do you wish to accomplish with your? With
the
what you're? Pardon me.
Create the spinning, like Keshe was saying. If by physics, by the flow of the plasma, naturally each ball is going to start to get connected and going to create a flow, or like how you call when everything is like
the gradient. Is that what the word you're looking for?
No, the water when you're taking a shower and the water is spins and it creates like a vortex.
Vortex. Mm-hmm.
So the vortex goes, we know, is positive and negative, has a point of reference of center. So when you create one spin and one right, it's one vortex. But if you have two vortex, you will have a 0 point. One is negative and one is positive, correct?
Well, when I did the test in the bathtub with the bathroom cam that I installed, let me see, a couple of months ago or something, maybe 3 months ago, for the Plasma Reactor Group, where I spun, I made a whirlpool with one hand in the bathtub and a whirlpool with the other hand. And first I made them both spin in the same direction, and they didn't really like that too much. They canceled each other out and just formed a bunch of little vortexes and dissipated. But if you spin one in one direction and spin the other one in the opposite direction, one clockwise, one counterclockwise, for example, then they start to work with each other and they feed each other. And you can see that it's a symbiotic thing. It's the way the universe would tend to go, that you would have two pairs of opposite spins. And that's what we find with electrons, apparently. They pair up in opposite spins. And that's why we have the quantum effect, where you can have an electron in one place, an electron in another place, and they're directly connected because of that. They were connected when they were spinning initially, and whatever something special about those spinning fields that creates that center plasma, that center connecting force, connectors. And yeah, they stay connected in the same way that these vortexes in the bathtub stay connected. And those vortexes can stay spinning. You can see the shadows with the camera. I wish I had the video right now to show. You can see the spinning vortexes. The main vortex keeps spinning for minutes later, compared to if they're spinning in the same direction, then they cancel each other out within seconds, basically. So, and in terms of these reactors, like the 3 bottom reactors, which way should they spin? Should they all spin in the same direction? In which case, in a way, they're canceling each other out. If 2 of them were in opposite directions, then at least 2 of them would be going in a way that the friction between them is at a minimum instead of a maximum. And then one other third reactor would be spinning with one of those 2 initial reactors and spinning against one of those 2 initial reactors. So it's a bit of a conundrum there in a way about this spinning.
A question, Rick. If we're talking about, if this is like a platform and they spin, wouldn't be, if they spin toward down negative, wouldn't be levitating or moving upward if they create a...
Well, what do you mean by spinning down? Because if for every down, there's an up, though, at the same time, right? So how would it create a net up?
So what you say is you have a vortex like this and then goes in the other direction like this? Or when 3 points spin in the same direction, there will be only one vortex going up if they spin in this way, counterclock.
Well, more like your second example, if you had that second one, just the one that goes from big to small there, the vortex. If you had two of those and they're both spinning in the same direction, then if you look at where the fields interact, they're actually rubbing against each other. Or even if you made just a circle, we need...
It's like this, like you have two and they're gonna start to touch each other here.
Right. So just if you imagine where they touch, if they're both going in a, say, you got them going in a counterclockwise direction, let's say. I don't know if they're clockwise or counterclockwise. You're starting to make counterclockwise motion with your hand. So
it will go back down because the sense. One goes up and the other one goes down. It depends how you do the spin.
Well, when you make a spin in the bathtub, you don't get that second one down at the bottom. You just have due to gravity, there's an opening at the top and a narrow thing at the bottom.
But the reason why I live in Argentina, right? And the water goes in a different direction than in North America.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking, you can make any vortex spin in any direction you want in the water by just making your hands make the motions. And that takes a lot more precedence over the very tiny amount that any thing about the north and south, because that's not really consistent. So what I'm saying is if you just look at the vortex, like just, for example, just draw two circles in your there. And help me out here. Just draw a circle there and another circle right beside it and touching it, same size. Yeah. Okay, now in the first circle, make a little arrow that one's, say, going counterclockwise. Okay, now make the bottom circle go counterclockwise too. Counterclockwise.
Okay.
Okay, now look at where they rub together. What's going to happen where they rub together?
One comes in this way and the other one comes in the opposite.
Right. So big friction, they're going to cancel each other out. So
right.
make the same diagram with two circles. And make one counterclockwise in the top, same as before. And make the one on the bottom clockwise. So now they're rotating in opposite directions. So what happens at the interface now?
Now they're contributing each other.
Right. They're both going in the same direction and they add to each other's spin. If one is going a little faster, it'll make the other one go faster. One's going a little slower, it'll tend to slow down the other one too. But they'll both want to be at the same speed. They'll both want to synchronize. And this is what I noticed in my bathtub doing this. And you can see it. I wish I could pull up that video right now, but it's very obvious if you were to do it in a pool or body of water to just make two whirlpools beside each other. And the ones that are opposite will pair up and they'll want to spin with each other and they'll have great fun doing it because they add to each other. And you would think that if they're all going in the same direction, then it should make them all happy and they're all contributing to each other. But if you look at the interface, it doesn't work out that way at all. So I thought that was quite interesting.
So the star is not a good shape to create a connection.
I'm not saying that because it may be that the friction between the fields is exactly what creates the free plasma or new materials or energy or whatever you wish. We discussed this last week and the week before in this group. And for example, if you were to look at this image and extend the circles so they intersect the other circles, just make concentric circles around those circles and more of them, and you'll see they'll intersect each other. So start out with 2, now make, no, I didn't mean that. Keep it with 2, but just make, okay, now make a bigger circle, same center, but a concentric circle around it. Yeah. And the same with the other one. Okay, and one more perhaps. Do it a 3rd time. No, from the same center, so just concentric circles.
So the 3rd one, where did?
We'll extend it out maybe to the bottom of the other circle there, to the next, something like that, yeah. And so the same center. No, it's the same center, same concentric circles, yes, yes. And the other one would have another circle.
I kind of got lost on this one.
Just draw from, yeah, that's it, exactly. So where the intersection, just notate the intersection points, just make a little mark on each intersection point where the outer circles hit each other. Yeah, like there, or whatever it was there. Yeah, that's one. All of those points, those are the points of where you're going to have the manifestation take place. Those are where the friction, the scraping, the light starts to take place. If you're dealing with fields that are invisible, that's where you'll start to see the light. That's where you'll start to see the manifestation of what we call atoms and what we call particles and that kind of thing from the fields.
Yeah.
And this is what Mario's been talking about for weeks and months and actually years, about this intersection of, because if you're to think of it in terms of sound waves look exactly the same as these. So if you had 2 sound sources, those pinpoints of the center of each of those circles would be the sound sources, and the fields from those sound sources go out in spherical fields. The sound actually is the waves go out in concentric circles, just like this. And so if you were to be in a room with 2 sound sources, like 2 speakers, 2 stereo speakers, there's certain places in the room where the sound is different than in other places. And that's where these fields overlap, and you'll get a completely different sound, or you can actually place sound in the room with this technique, and they have formulas that work it all out, certain ways to direct the waves and have them intersect in very specific ways to increase or decrease the volume at that point. Or you can create waves in a lake with this, and where those waves intersect, you'll have a standing wave pattern take place. And that'll look totally different than the initial waves that were set up. And it can exist over a large area because these waves keep going out from that central point. That's what a radiating wave does. So in terms of our reactors, they're basically radiating waves from a central point, the central free plasma point specifically, but also from the ganses or other, just rotating a reactor creates waves. They know now that anything that rotates creates gravity waves. Doesn't matter how big or small it is. It may not be easily detectable, but that's because we have crude instruments that are still a bit in the Stone Age. So very important, these intersections of these waves that are created. Anybody want to add anything to that?
Yeah. Is everyone familiar with Nassim Haramein? He's the unified field physicist that came out with the quantum gravity holographic paper. He solved for the mass of the electron, and he did it 2 years before or a year before. Technology actually caught up with it with their latest measurements, and his was more accurate than the current standard model. And when you're talking about things that are spinning and producing waves, the fabric of our reality is always spinning and it always creating this in and out feedback loop. And when we're working with this technology, basically all we're doing is tuning into that field that's already existing in that state. So what we're doing basically is creating coherency, tuning into it. And Mr. Keshe says zero-time communication. And the GANs, the container is the universe. So he's kind of pointing towards the same direction as well with that, with just those two statements. How does that actually work, zero-time communication? If you're creating the ripples or the waves, you know, that there's some sort of then and now, or sorry, now and then, but they're already entangled, so to speak. And you can go read his paper. It's resonance.is, I believe the website, or Resonance Academy. And in it, basically, what he found was the vacuum density inside the proton equals, which is some crazy number. I think it's 10 to the negative 43 centimeters cubed. He found out that the vacuum density, the mass inside that one proton, equals the entire physical mass of the universe. So he came up with that principle that everything's entangled, holographic, and you can access all points in space and time through that network. And the information, thanks, Estella, is encoded in that, in the energy or the weight or the mass. He's come up with some really amazing equations, and he's sort of leading the way with actually quantifying what we're dealing with. So his knowledge is really on par with Keshe's, and he's sort of doing it on paper versus Keshe's actually doing it as a working model with all of our kits and reactors and whatnot.
Yeah, I think most people here are familiar with his work. I thought what he said about the proton was quite interesting, that inside the proton is a universe that is as diverse and huge in terms of scope as our entire universe when we look out and see these trillions upon trillions of stars and galaxies and so on in our universe. There's all of that inside of a proton, and it goes on vastly into the smaller and smaller scale size, the same as when we look out into the universe into the larger and larger scale size. So it made me think, wow, and that yes, the possibility of interconnecting with another part of the universe through actually through a proton. Imagine to be able to get information in a proton that could connect you with some event or some thing and the other far end of the universe. It's hard to believe, but technically we're getting to the point of explaining such phenomena.
But look at what happened with humans. I mean, I think everybody have experienced this, that suddenly you start to like something, and a couple weeks later, everybody's wearing the same colors or or it's like they receive the message of everybody's having a common denominator, and somehow a color is in fashion, or a thought came to your mind, and later in a week you see it in the news, and a lot of people are talking about. Recently happened with the bone broth, which is a soup, and now it's like the hottest thing is to, you know, eat bone broth, and I'm like, wow, you know. I attribute that to that kind of connection that we've been receiving information because these kind of connections, but we don't realize we have it.
Yes, and there's stories of inventions that have come onto the planet that have been invented on opposite sides of the world, and the inventors had no idea that the other people were working on the same invention, and they both announced it, you know, within days of each other, and discover that they've invented something that someone else has already been working on. So it's like the idea has already come onto the planet. It's already sort of landed here, and it becomes unveiled. It's rather than we take our sort of personal pride in our ideas and so on. Perhaps they're not as unique as we think they are. We're just picking up on what's passing through on the planet in ideas.
Because we always think as separated, as individuals, when in reality we are connected and we are one.
That's right.
There's a wonderful experiment that's been going on for, I think, 2 decades, and it's called the Global Consciousness Project. I'm sure some of you are aware of it, but for those who are not, it was done with number generators that are basically flipping ones and zeros 100,000 times a second, and they place these number generators throughout the planet, and they started to notice discrepancies, very significant discrepancies between 50%. It would fluctuate, not even a percentage, I believe, from 50. But when consciousness was coherent on specific events such as New Year's and Olympics and bigger events, I think they're still doing this. Global Consciousness Project. They found out that it would fluctuate severely from 50%. And the one time it actually fluctuated before the event was on 9/11, and it started going off the charts the day before. And right at the climax of the fluctuation was right when the planes hit. And that was the only time that they noticed a true time-space phenomenon where we were actually affecting these before the event actually took place.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, I think you've been holding your camera there, Stella. You better get a tripod so we get both to study your image and you don't get some sort of repetitive wrist injury or something from trying to hold your camera.
Thank
Rick?
You.
Yes, is that Jalal?
Hi.
Hi.
Good day. Hi, everyone.
Here, I'll take the, you don't need the camera view here, Jalal, or?
No.
Okay.
I just will ask questions and adding to the knowledge. Guys, you know how to take out cancer? I think we all know how. And the doctors show us how to extract cancer from the body. And whether we add it to the cells or we are taking out the material. So if we are pulling, if we consider the CH3, if you consider the carbon is a cancer, how are you going to pull out the carbon?
You process it.
How you process it?
Higher feeds the weaker.
No. Higher feeds the weaker when there is the weaker when need to feed. But if you go to the mass ratio, then the feeder will turn out to be a puller. You remember when he said when you used to patch 2-to-1 or 3-to-1? This is will make a condition that the stronger feed the weaker, and in that way you will have both of them in the same position, but they will one feed the other. But if you go to 14 or 24, then the stronger the weaker, it will not hold itself, so it will release, and then the stronger will be a puller. Do you remember these guys?
Yes.
So if I consider carbon is a cancer, I put it with a stronger batch. So if you have 100 milliliter of CH3, how much carbon you have inside?
Well, it's all about changing it so the tumor doesn't use that as an energy supply, so you could shift it up or shift it down.
Yeah, how? You need a stronger field to pull it out. So the ratio here, how much carbon in 100 milliliter? If we say, let's say 80%, 80 milliliter, this 80 milliliter x 24, you see, remember when he said, look what Giovanni do, look what the doctors do, how much they measure everything. You need to measure. We put the CH3 in the CO2 box and we leave it for, I left it for six months. Nothing happens. It's the same thing, because when I put the CH3 in the box, okay, it will pull some carbon, but still Mr. Keshe, he's saying you still have carbon in. How are you gonna take it out? It's very easy. He's telling us. Now, Rick, you have 3 ball cores. Yes?
Pardon me, a 3-ball
Cores.
course?
Core.
Cores.
Reactor.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. The inner one is nano-coated empty ball.
Inner one of what?
The inner
ball. A diagram, or I'll make a diagram. Or something.
It's a dynamic reactor that he's talking about. You got 3 attendees too, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me. Can I?
You can annotate, or Danny can, or I will, or one of us will. I have to get these guys in first. As soon as we start talking about these things, we have to have a picture, otherwise it just.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I don't have the time much. Okay, I will annotate here. Where is my pen? Okay. There is 1. There's 2. This is 3-ball reactor. The inner one, nano-coated, empty ball, inside, outside. Okay. The second one, you put CH3. The outside is empty with inner nano-coated, inside nano-coating. And you turn the middle one only. Only the middle one is turning. So what will happen here? The heavier go inside. You will have a ball with a carbon inside. The lighter of H3, 2 will make deuterium that will be joined together. The lighter one, the one hydrogen, will go to the third ball. Theoretisch. Is that possible?
Sorry, what was the last sentence you said?
Theory, by theory.
Theory.
Theory. Because we are speaking Swedish. And okay.
He did explain this exact setup in, I don't know, if it wasn't the last workshop, but the one before that.
Yeah, you need only to understand what you are doing. You need only the middle one. Now to extract the carbon from the hydrogen, and at the same time you take out the hydrogen from the 3 hydrogen. In the same time. You pull the carbon inside because the carbon is heavier, and you give 1 hydrogen outside because 1 hydrogen from the 3, it will be separate because you have 2H is deuterium. It will catch itself. So 1 hydrogen will go outside. And then in this situation, the inner, you have carbon field, stellar field, not matter, not plasma. You need to not mixing matter, plasma, field. This is all matter, have all of the 3, but what you are doing, what you need to understand, you are dealing with matter, you are working with matter with little bit plasma inside and little bit field outside. You working with the plasma, you have more plasma, little bit field, and I think less matter. If you are working only with field, you are working only with field, and from field you can make, as you know, plasma and matter.
By plasma, you mean GANs?
Yeah. So now I am using the GANs, CH3 in the middle, taking out the carbon. When I rotate the middle one, the carbon will go to the center. In the plasma, the heavier go to the center. Yes? I think we all know that. And in the same time, if you extract the carbon inside, you will have 3 hydrogen. 2 of them, it will join together, it will be deuterium, heavier will stay, and the lighter will go out. The same thing if you have CH3 in a bowl, you make ratio of carbon 24 to 1. How much you have here? You think about it, it's 1. And you make here X 24. And then you can pull out the carbon so quick. And you don't need weeks. I think in half an hour, not more. So think about it, guys. I don't have the course. Rick, you have it. You can do it in half an hour.
No, not really.
Yes.
I spent hours and hours and days with cores, and the motors keep seizing, and I have to redo everything again. And now I've got a basket of 7 burned out motor cores and motors. A 7 out of 10 have burned out.
Yeah, you need only one ball is rotating, only one from the 3.
Yeah, and that makes it more difficult because you have to have seals or some way to make it so that the inner ball is stationary and the outer ball is stationary, but the middle one is rotating. So there has to be a seal on the outside, a seal on the inside.
Yeah, and don't use too much water, as John, he is not using too much water.
What do you mean in the CH3 ball?
Yeah.
You mean more gams than water, or you mean
Yes.
more air?
Yes. It's only a little bit moist.
Right. I think he talked about it being like a paste.
Yes.
More
Yes. Paste. Yes. So good idea, Jalal. Go ahead. Go, guys.
It is a good idea.
It's really easy. Mr. Cash, he cannot telling you do that exactly, do that and that. You need to know what you are doing. So if I put a CH3 here, we all put CH3 here, and we all put the pulling, the carbon, the CO2 kit. But how much how much is between these two? Which is the stronger, and how much strong? Is it feeding the CH3 or it's taking from it a little bit? That's all. From CH3, if you have, let's say, 80%, you are taking maybe you are taking only 10 or 20% because your CO2 kit is not strong enough to pull. That's all. Make only carbon, take only carbon, and put this ratio 1 to 24. How much you have CH3 here? 1 milliliter, put here 24 milliliter, and you see it will change direct, because the giver here it will with this ratio it will be a puller. It will pull direct. This one, it will not hold itself because the gradients or the ratio is too high, stronger than him. He cannot hold himself. Good. Let me go back to work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jalal, for dropping in. Appreciate your input very much.
We have Lawrence with his hand.
Yes, I see that. Thank you, Denny. And Lawrence, do you have something you'd like to say or present at this point in time? You'll have to go ahead and unmute your microphone if you'd like. Oh, there we go. Hello?
Hello, good morning, friends. How do you do?
They can barely hear you. Maybe you can get closer to your mic there.
Like this is better?
I don't notice any difference. Maybe a little better, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to chime in and thank you for the nice ideas that you shared today. And I wanted to give some feedback to all of you. I mean, like all the different ideas, a little bit of additions. Firstly, the vortex that you've been drawing around that Stella presented. When you're drawing the vortex, there are empty spaces in between the lines of the vortex that are drawn. So when talking about plasma, we always need to understand that the field in the other direction is built within the field of the one direction. So basically, when we're drawing a vortex to the right, there are empty lines going to the left into the other direction within the same vortex. So you don't need to extend the vortex on the other side at the center downward. It's already built into the vortex going. It's the magnetic and the gravitational combined within each other.
Yes, and Mr. Keshe said that the space in between, actually, those are the stronger fields.
Yes.
Yeah, there's always an in and out.
And to further elaborate on the ideas that Rick raised was the standing waves and the acoustic phenomenon. I think we all know about cymatics. You know, this standing wave from one loudspeaker creating a standing wave image with sand or washing powder on a flat surface. And when you adjust the different speeds, I mean the different frequencies of the sound, you get different standing wave images at certain stable frequencies. You know what I'm talking about? Cymatics? You want me to put something into the chat or?
Yeah, I think it's sometimes called cymatics. It's what, C-Y-M-A-T-I-C, I think.
Yes. And I don't know if you know about it, but there's a topic called sonoluminescence.
Yes. Let me bring up the Wikipedia here first with cymatics so we can have a look at that. Then it'd be great to have a little chat about sonoluminescence as well. So let me just get... Okay, this is the Wikipedia with cymatics, I think comes from the Greek meaning wave. It's a subset of modal vibrational phenomena. So basically, when a surface is resonated, the particles, there's a little demonstration video. Oh, I don't want to play that. Sorry, Jalal, you have to mute you there. I think you didn't mean to have that sound come through. Speaking of sound. Yeah, that's from a film. I don't want to play that one. Here's an image that shows sort of like what we were talking about. You can see the intersections of waves here and the troughs and hills of the waves and so on through the vibration of a plate or a vibration of a water solution. I've done those experiments and shown them as well in the past in this group. Okay, so then you were talking about sonoluminescence.
Yes.
Lawrence.
The next topic very much related and connected to this topic of cymatics. It's the phenomenon that when you put a standing wave into water, you can create bubbles within the water. And when those bubbles implode, they create a little bit flash of light alongside this heat exposure. And
yes.
there have been, it's the same thing on Wikipedia. It can be seen very nicely.
I've got it up here, yeah. I brought that up in this group before and we have discussed it, and that's actually part of an experiment that I'm setting up at this time as well, but I'm interested to know what you have to say about it. So essentially, just so that people know here a little more, that, for example, in this picture, you see a bubble in the middle there. They have transducers attached to this flask. There's one on each side of the flask. These are ultrasonic transducers. They put a high frequency sound signal into these transducers. They're like little speakers. It resonates the flask and sets up a standing wave inside that collapses the bubble essentially, or expands and collapses the bubble. And during the collapse of the bubble, a very intense energy wave or an energy pulse is given off such that the actual bubble will illuminate, will become light. There'll be a pinpoint of light inside of the flask when it's resonating. Okay, go ahead, Lawrence.
Yes, the point I wanted to make is that firstly, the ultrasound transducer that resonates the bottle is basically analogous to the motors that we are using when rotating the cores. They create, the cores are a certain rotation, the frequency of the rotation is determined by the motor, and here we have a transducer that creates a sound that resonates the whole apparatus, that then creates that little small bubble in the middle. The special form of this is the stable single bubble sonoluminescence. It's the third paragraph in the history part, where the bubble appears to be constant, even though it's constantly emitting light. It's like a little resonating light bulb that constantly implodes and emits heat and emits light. And one important thing to understand from this experiment is that since we know about the plasmatic fields, when there's heat emitted, there's also a gravitational field going inside. So the implosion, which is going inside, emits the wave going outside. It's the gravitational and the magnetic working at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
And there are huge energies created with this system if we consider what temperature.
Yeah, I've highlighted a possible, they've postulated an inner temperature of such a bubble well above 1 million Kelvin is postulated. So this is interesting because from my perspective, we can create a reactor. That little bubble can become a reactor. If that little bubble is, for example, our hydrogen or deuterium gas or tritium gas, we can create actual fusion conditions within that bubble to actually create a fusion reactor inside of essentially a lab flask like this.
Yes. And this is why I wanted to show this experiment, that this bubble is very, very, very tiny and still has huge energies, because Danny showed us systems with huge dimensions compared to what we're working with when talking about fields. And I wanted to make his life easier so that he just built something much smaller with much less material and maybe achieving results faster, because even the CO2 kit, I think we talked about this, that the difference between the plates in terms of distance has different effects on what kind of material is produced in the CO2 kit. So if we only use 5 centimeters or 3 centimeters difference, we will have a different result as when we put the plates 20 centimeters apart. We could convert this to, say, 2 inches versus 8 inches or whatever. So the difference counts because there are different field strength interactions depending on how far apart or close together the initial reactors are. And so this is what I wanted to add to Danny's presentation. And there's another thing to the last colleague who spoke before me. I don't remember his name. I think he's right. We can also use the ganses layered with each other. So if we took multiple cores, different balls that can fit within each other, and have an empty ball for the field holder in the middle, and then put each of the balls into the GANS solution or the plasma water, liquid plasma. We don't need really the GANS at the bottom. The liquid plasma is a holder for the fields, as we know. But with the liquid plasma, we have the difficulty that we don't, that will be hard to see the rotation of the inner fields. And if we use the layering of, as explained, with the heavier fields in the center and the lighter fields at the outside, we will have the same effect as if we were only using the fields as explained last week, the week before. And I don't know if it's okay, but if you type in sonoluminescence and thunderbolts into a search field, there is a video from the Thunderbolts project. I don't know if you know about that one. It's
yeah. I've put that link out a couple of weeks ago or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't play it on here because it's a copyrighted video.
It's YouTube license, but yes, I just
we can't play. You're not allowed to play YouTube videos and replay them. We only replay ones that we've already originated, so we own the copyright for them. Otherwise, you have to get full permission. It's totally copyrighted, every YouTube video.
All right, I can say the name of the video, The Bridge Between Sound and Light.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. Let's put the link up here. It's a good one for people to have a look at. I really enjoyed it. Can you put the link into the chat?
Yes, I will just log in and put the link in, of course.
Okay, thank you.
And in that video, the guy not only talks about this phenomenon of sonoluminescence, but also about Birkeland currents, which are basically those currents, if you take a look at the Wikipedia entry, that are emitted by the plasma of planets in outer space. And when you take a look at the images that are displayed in this topic of Birkeland current on Wikipedia, they are looking very much like the drawings that Mr. Keshe drew up last week or the week before, when he was explaining about these magnetic fields connected with the gravitational fields, the empty space in between. I think if you put up Birkeland current and
yeah, this is the Birkeland current for Wikipedia.
The second image, the aurora-like Birkeland currents created by scientist Cristina Nesterella, shows very much almost the same picture as we had with the magnetic and gravitational fields explanation. And,
so this is, just to be clear on this picture, this is a magnetized anode globe in an evacuated chamber. So this is the streamers that come off of a globe that's in a vacuum chamber, essentially.
Yes.
And he was experimenting to show the similarities of the fields in space compared to what he could create. And he had quite a large chamber, actually. I think it was like a few meters wide or something, and had a large ball inside and did all kinds of interesting experiments.
Is that rotating too?
It's just
electricity. I don't think so. I think it's just electrified, high voltage.
The thing they are explaining with these currents is that these currents have different configurations. They have dark mode when the current flow is low. And as the current flow, I mean the plasmatic current, this Birkeland current flow gets higher, it comes to a light phase. I mean, like when it emits light, like rubbing with the outer boundary, rubbing at the outer boundary, just like the Earth's atmosphere and the sun. And Mr. Keshe always explains to us that when we're creating the Starship, the spaceship, we will be experiencing a flash of light, and then the silvery outer bubble appears. So basically, if we create the cores, as we explained last week or this week, with the proper layering, and we combine them with each other to create a strong gradient core, we will not see it as long as the gradient is low. I mean, like the current, the plasmatic current is low. It will be just like this Birkeland current in dark mode. It will be invisible. And as soon as the current flow reaches a certain threshold, the threshold of what we experience as matter state, it will start rubbing and creating that flash of light. And I think also the shielding, the protection as we use it. And just to go back a little bit about to the topic of acoustics and standing waves, when we're talking with each other, we are expressing emotions. So basically, voice, the human sound, is a materialized form of emotions. We are modulating the fields very quickly. I shared there's a new scientific discovery that people at the Max Planck University for Biophysical Chemistry in Germany, Max Planck Institut für Biophysikalische Chemie. The name of the guy is Jens Fram, and they created an MRI of how the human voice looks from the side when talking. I mean, like they created an MRI, a moving MRI, a movie of an MRI. And when we're talking, it's the slower version of our emotions. We could, you know, there are these Buddhist monks when they sit together and they start chanting this Om and create this sound of a stable sound that is, you know, constant with for some minutes. Like this, they create a constant standing wave, just like we use with the cymatics or with the sonoluminescence approach. And the reason why I bring this up is that we need to have constant emotions to be able to direct the reactors, because once you know, we go into the spaceship or we start interacting with the cores, we will be constantly giving and taking, feeding the cores will be feeding us. So whenever we change our emotions, just like we want to stand up or we want to, we feel hungry at the present emotional state, we do something, the cores will react too. So it's basically first we create the self-feeding feedback loop system, the 6-to-1 core, the analogy of the 6-to-1 core. It doesn't need to be a 6-to-1 core. It can be any size of plasmatic difference. The human body is composed of lots of different ganses. So the core that we call the soul is, of course, an aggregation of multiple layers of fields of different strengths. And just like the analogs of the human body, the soul of the spaceship reactors will also be analogically composed of multiple layers. And the reason why we need to understand these phenomena of cymatics and sonoluminescence is that we need to be able to be constant with our emotions. I mean, like, you know, we have lots of thoughts, thinking of this person, that person, these kinds of emotions arise, that kind of emotions arise. To be one with the spaceship, I mean, like to be responsible and to not, you know, jump up and down, go here and there, be not like the monkey going from one tree to the other. We need to be very focused and you know, calm and clean, or whatever you want to call it, with our emotions. And the reason for that is that we interact just like the sound on the metal level in sonoluminescence. Our emotions interact with the cores. So this is what I wanted to share today.
Very good point. Thank you, Lawrence. I think that's right bang on. Anybody else like to comment on that idea?
Well, this is Denny. I was paying attention, Lawrence, and you were talking about the size of a reactor. Does it need to be as large as I'm making them? I was just letting you know that I was listening.
Thank you.
Well, there's certainly different shapes and sizes, and it seems like it's any size will do if it works.
Well, some of the larger ones are easier to make because of the convenience of the materials. They're ready to be had. PVC, half-inch PVC pipe. It's readily available.
Except maybe in space. No Home Depot in space.
Well, yeah, so we start to think about a spaceship and the different styles of spaceships and the different designs that people will make. Some of those spaceships, when you get inside, they'll probably have motors. It's not the ideal situation, but they will probably have a motor to move other things, maybe not in the reactor. You might have a motor as a toy. You just don't know what you will have in that spaceship. And then again, other people will choose the whole soul route. And some people will choose the physical route. There'll be a variety of function and form.
Yes, and we have to remember the famous quote from Mr. Keshe, who once said, "There are as many types of reactors in the universe as there are stars in the universe." So that would lead to many, many, many types of reactors. We're not talking about just reactors, but types, different ways they can be done. So just changing one small variable makes it a different reactor, and all of a sudden it's producing something different or has a different effect and so on. So, and Mr. Keshe has often said that there's no wrong designs, but on the other hand, some may work better or more efficiently or actually work compared to something that's more of a demo model, let's say, or some things may be of lower field strength and such that they may not be as effective for what you actually would like to create, perhaps. Others may be of such strong field strength that maybe it's too strong to be playing around with, and you have to leave it up to the pros that have the correct equipment and correct facilities to play with such things. So, yeah. Okay, anybody else have something they would like to bring up, discuss, and otherwise? We can maybe go on for a little while longer here. I'd like to wrap up fairly soon. We have several other programs going on today in the private teachings and other meetings and so on happening. This is I think the beginning of the private teachings of the Keshe Foundation for the students and orientation day and so on. So you have to leave a bit of space for that. I think that's coming up fairly soon, within, I think, 2 hours. Okay, what else do people have for what's on your mind? Any questions, any cool things to show?
I'll only make one comment here, is that it's quite interesting to figure out how to make the reactor just with the emotions, without any physicality, without any other tools. And it's a challenge worth going after and seeing how to do it, how to design it. And I play in that area, but I haven't perfected much of anything. But that's part of learning, because you make an effort, you learn something from it. You make an effort, you learn something from it. You make another, it always keeps adding on. So part of this, the goals here is to figure out how to make a reactor that's totally soul and emotion, because they tie together. So anyhow, that's still part of the challenge, yet sometimes we have to fall back on the physicality of pulling some of these things together as well.
Yep, there's nothing to say we can't do both while we still have this physical incarnation. So we're lucky to be in that position. Let's take advantage of it, I say. It's easy to say, of course, harder to do. It's easy to make a design. It's a lot harder to put it into the actual physicality. But maybe part of it is just the work of conceiving these ideas and working with them in our mind and in our emotions. And the actual building of it may be secondary. Maybe we don't need to, but some may have a need to. So we need to provide that information to those that need it, because everyone's on a different level. I think we'd all be in some sort of joy of seeing an actual physicality ship manifesting itself in a variety of different shapes and styles, perhaps. And the joy and wonder of all that would be, I think, quite acceptable, at least to me.
I would agree with the latter of what you just said there, that it's coming up with the idea first and the rest will follow suit. And I really recommend people get into 3D printing, because it's so easy to make reactors with 3D printers. And I've actually come up with the Caroline core, and I'm getting ready to share that with Mr. Keshe very soon, hopefully tomorrow, if there's time to do that. So if not, maybe here next week, but we'll see.
Okay, great, Thomas. Thank you. And just a reminder to other people that are hearing my voice that it is a good time if you have some creative reactors or starship configurations or a starship that you would like to show. Now would be a good time. And if you have a presentation is the best way to go. If you have some sort of PDF or a video or something you'd like to show, if you could send it to me or to the webmaster at Keshe Foundation, then it's best to have things pre-approved and checked before we show them. Otherwise, we don't want any surprises. Do not put background music on. It ends up being a pain in one way or another. And inevitably, there's copyright claims and we have to try to get them erased and so on. So it's not a good idea. Yeah, so Mr. Keshe has emphasized that it's time to come together and put our ideas together and working toward our goal of creating some positive positioning And the whole concept of the spaceship, whether it's created from your soul or created from your imagination or created from your hands, either way, it's a valid way to engage in a new way of interpreting and talking about the laws of the universe. I think it's a mechanism, it's a way to interact in some of the higher, stronger field strength possibilities that we have as humans. We don't want to limit ourselves to just the physicality and just planet Earth. We can have all kinds of solutions for planet Earth, but maybe it's time to think about lifting our eyes upward rather than at our feet, and think about rising up rather than bending over. So that's what I'm into. Rise up. And remember that levity is the cure for gravity. I think that's important too.
Say, Rick, there's a new social media site out there called OnStellar, which uses blockchain technology and stuff to block the deep state from hassling you and stuff like that. A lot of the truther channels are really promoting it quite a bit. I put a link in the chat there for if anyone wants a referral to sign up on it. Right now it's in it's open to people to try it out. It's in the pre-alpha version. So it's you know, all the bugs aren't out of it yet, but I put up a page on there about plasma and been posting some of my videos, and it's got two components to it. There's it's sort of like a blog. You can put you can put articles up, and then you can set up pages. Like I set up a page called Plasma Unleashed, and that's like a Facebook page where you put little posts. You can link to videos and put pictures up and short links to whatever you want to say, I guess.
Well, it's a good way to reach people and so on. I do prefer that people use the forum site as well on the community site, which has most of this Facebook-like sort of features with groups and connections and notices and that kind of thing. But it's great to have other sites like this that you just showed. I'm just having a brief look at it now. And, you know, if we can put up different, like you've established sort of a beachhead there in a way with this plasma thing and whatever you've posted. And
I can share my page if you someone else takes down the share there. The neat thing about right now, you can get in and choose a username that's not already taken. Like I got the name Lee already, which.
Yes.
So, where's the share screen? So.
Yeah, we can't see hardly anything, Lee. You have to take your, what do you call it, screen optimization off because it's totally blurry. You can't read any words.
Okay. Looks good on my page.
Yeah. It's a strange thing with Zoom where you have to actually change that, and if you run video or not. Okay, now we see. Yeah, now it's clear. Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, this is the page. It's similar to Facebook, where you can post your stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So
well, that's good to know on Stellar.
But yeah, it's really in the early stages right now of getting set up. So, but it's getting lots of good reviews. Whether it takes off and becomes a good spot, who knows?
Yes, and I always wonder about who runs such places, but anyway, you can check it out. All right. Hey?
All we know is it's not controlled by the deep state like all the other social media places are.
And all the deep state recommends it?
No, they don't like it. They don't like the blockchain.
What does it mean by blockchain? The way it's run, or the way it's organized, or how does that work? It's,
I don't understand it totally, but somehow when you post something here, it can't be filled with or something.
Okay. It's like a group server thing, and not group server event. I mean, each individual has part of the whole picture rather than, or has the whole picture and part of it.
I don't know. I don't understand it enough to explain it.
Not a central server for the information. The server, this information gets stored on everybody's blockchain, probably. Anyway, okay, that's good. Thank you, Lee. Anybody else with something to share while we wind things down here? Let me share my video, I guess. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Going once, going twice. Trying to think what else. Well, I think that's all for now, I guess. I would like to continue with this idea of the sonoluminescence and the creation of the conditions. Conditions of what? Well, if we look at the patent, we look at some of the conditions that are talked about there, which includes compression, which we find in sonoluminescence. The compression of that implosion bubble is what creates the heat, 1,000,000 degrees Kelvin heat, up to that much. They measured 30,000 degrees, but their measuring instruments are not adequate. So it's got compression, it's got the turbulence, which is one of the other factors in the patent. Heat is another thing which is mentioned in the patent. What is it? What the other? The magnetic fields, which are important. And this is what they're finding now with this sonoluminescence implosion, creates actually a very strong magnetic field when all the fields implode into that center point. It creates a magnetic, very strong magnetic field, but on a micro level, of course. So we've got all the components that is talked about in the patent right there in that tiny micro bubble, less than 1 millimeter big. And if you consider the idea that the scientists are talking about recently, the astrophysicists they're talking about just after what they call as the Big Bang, which Mr. Keshe calls the big whoosh. It's a whoosh, not a bang. That there's fields that were created that we don't have any longer, because our universe was created from those initial fields, which, because they were of positive and negative, strong positive and negative fields, which canceled each other out almost immediately after the Big Bang. And what we see as our universe is actually only the residual remainder after all these positives and all these negatives canceled each other out, because there's always a little bit more of the one than the other. There's a slight off balance of the positive and negative. There's a little bit more of the negative charge compared to the positive charge. So it ends up, when they cancel out, there's always a little bit left over. Well, that little bit left over is our entire universe. And if we can get close to those initial prime fields, those intense high energy levels, even a cubic centimeter would have more energy than we've ever imagined on planet Earth, and forever would power the entire planet forever. So a tiny little micro bubble of a millimeter, if maybe the fields are separated in the correct way and a certain type of fusion process, but not fusion in the way we normally think of it, perhaps there's room for creating something really special. So, room for thought there. I'm going to extrapolate more on that and try to flesh that out better so we can understand that idea better. And I'm going to attempt to connect it with the directly from the ideas in the patent, which is the gases that Mr. Keshe originally discussed, as opposed to the ganses. And maybe we can make a crossover between the gases and ganses to find a commonality between them as well, with this whole thing of compressive, turbulent, rotative, magnetic spin. Right on. Okay, let's call it a day, night, evening, morning, whatever you happen to be. And I recommend people sign up to be in the Keshe private teaching so that you can take in what the...
So how do we turn the liquid into gas?
That's very loud. Just a minute. Well, I got to turn down
sorry,
my
sir.
Very loud.
I turn it down.
What's the question again? How do we turn liquid?
So we need the gas state of it, but how do we turn it into a gas? And
well, Mr.
we have
Keshe talked about that and was discussed earlier, in that you don't have to make the gas. You can create it in the liquid, and it will appear as a cloudy.
So that's a gas.
A kind of a cloud, a thin, misty cloud within the liquid, sort of like the GANs we have now, or like the GANs we have now. Or
no, I've never had that. Does that mean that I have made a mistake? I've never seen a cloud on top of a gathering GANs or plasma water.
Never seen the CO2 cloud forming inside your...
Well, I've seen the CO2 cloud formation in the solution, like it's a slow motion movement. If that's the case, that's I've witnessed.
To that, but perhaps the hydrogen GANs might be looking. It'll look different somehow. Maybe it'll shimmer more than normal. Maybe it'll levitate off the table more than normal. I'm not sure. But he did mention it. You don't have to create an actual gas, matter level gas. It can be in the liquid.
Yeah.
And this is what I actually hope to create, because I can create a rotating liquid in a lab flask. I can create a bubble in the middle of that.
You did way more than that.
Or any combination of gases. And then that liquid, though, doesn't have to be water. It can be something else that doesn't have the oxygen in it that might contaminate that central plasma that gets created. So maybe a hydrogen bubble in some sort of other liquid that could be a strong liquid, but not water. Like, I don't know, hydrogen chloride or
I felt like I have created that condition that accumulates the bubbles within in over many combinations and with using many different materials. And I really do feel there is difference in between my understanding, my feeling and processing is more like processing, not feeling, not anything else. It's processing. That performance increases or decreases according to, it's always around me, those bubbles, hydrogen. It's easy to, but how am I supposed to pass that threshold to be able to handshake the other side?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is there's, like I say, trillions and trillions of kinds of reactors. And so you have to define the conditions exactly according to your knowledge to refine those conditions as much as possible, to nail down the variables. You know that within a certain temperature range, you're going to have the best results. Within a certain salinity range, you have the best results. Within a certain, range of gravity and atmosphere and so on and so on and so on. Or maybe an absence of gravity and atmosphere is where it will work best. And maybe it works in space, but it doesn't work on Earth. So you have to get it out of Earth's atmosphere in order for your device to even manifest, and so on and so forth. Yeah, there's a lot of ins and outs to the actual practicality of it all. That's why it's making the soul level work almost a much easier way to go about things, to work on the soul spaceship instead of the physicality one. There's probably less variables to nail down, and you just have to apply yourself in a dedicated way.
I once believed that if I believed in the total let myself go into the environment and feel it and understanding, that it came across with myself while I'm in my own reality in this 3Dness, and I couldn't balance it. I couldn't let go in terms of, I couldn't let go my sort of wife or daughter. It comes to these understandings are giant barriers in every way. Not a game, not a toy, but understandings. It's like a China walls. You need to come to that, face to it, just like head to it, put your head to it and listen to it and understand and just go across. It's difficult. It's honestly, you need to today's understanding, day-to-day understanding is based on day-to-day workings and going to work and coming back and having food, trying to have some good food and like organic. Do you know what I mean? Like trapped in all those little bits, like organic, is it or not, or other things that gives us the day-to-day comfort, so that we're based on an understanding that we're living good and we're achieving something okay. Because we may not be able to achieve the grand beautifulness and everything else, the wonderfulness, but we think we can get on with it. But even within those equations, we are dismissing ourselves from ourselves by accepting the whatever it is going on, are we're magic, really. Everything is going on without our understanding everything is around us is actually constructed that so we can easily penetrate. We came to a point truly astonishing. The speed of it is truly astonishing. Mr. Keshe, that is, I have goosebumps right now, but totally, there's no ending. Don't expect me to wait to say something that to relieve everything else, but we're all working for it, aren't we? In our way, even if I have different understanding, different attentions and excitements that I have over the time, which we all balance it within ourselves. And there you go, I'm here. But because of us, because of everyone, the threshold is the threshold we have arrived right this very moment. How we're going to treat ourselves is the main, it's not the key, but the main way, like the motorway that we're on.
Okay, thank you, Alper. I really need to wrap things up now, so thanks for your comments. Jay is back, but he's got a couple of questions about how and why the nano coating spreads along a wire with the MagGrav unit, what takes place, blah, 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 blah. Hold your question until next week and we'll answer it then. I can't go on today. And we did talk at length about the empty ball. You can review today's video. And we talked about that after you left there, Jay, and answered your questions so that you can go back and have a look at that. Okay, let's wrap it up for now, and stay tuned for the Knowledge Seekers Workshop coming up tomorrow. That's Thursday at 9 a.m. Central European Time. And I think that's all for news and weather for right now. And keep your experiments going. Let's see some more results and some more attempts, and the theories and all that are good as well. It's all great to see the input here. Thanks to everybody today for various input on various platforms. It's quite interesting to see. I think that this teaching now, I'm convinced that it can be taught with a stick in the mud. And that's it's like the stick in the mud teaching. We can teach it anywhere on the planet or on any planet with a stick in the sand. And I think that's amazing and wonderful that that we're able to do that. So let's have a cheer to stick in the mud. In fact, there's a coffee shop nearby that's called the Stick in the Mud Coffee Shop. Okay, shout out to them. All right, wrap it up for now. Thanks everybody. I'm going to end the live stream. And